Welcome to American Beer TV. We got a great beer for you today from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. This is their homegrown estate ale, which means
they've made every single thing that went into this beer on their estate. So their terroir, as it's called in terms of wine term, regarding the lands of a vineyard where the grapes are grown. Well, in this case, it's not grapes; it's malt and hops. So they've actually grown every single thing on their estate. This is something completely new and unique.
They're the first brewery to ever do this, and it is USDA certified organic.
Right. So this is definitely a unique milestone in the history of American craft beer. This is something that I think, regardless of what style of beer you like, whether you're a hophead or not, this is a hoppy beer, so your hopheads are going to love it. Whether you're a maltster or a hophead, you're going to want to go out and grab this, try it, because for two reasons. One, it's a unique experiment that I think you owe it to yourself to try, and two, you know, I think this is something that we want to encourage in the American craft beer industry. So,
yeah, this is one of those like beer-changing moments again. It's
seriously.
like, you know,
there's been many innovations, but this is one of them. You know,
so we've got this beer on draft today.
Yes,
I just got it in. I had to tap it. We, ran over and tasted it real quick.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely. So that's it.
Sweet.
So yeah.
But I think this is the first year. We talked about that before. This is the first year that they've done this. There's a couple, if you look on the internet, there's Homegrown, and then there's Estate Harvest or something like that, which is like a wet hop. So this is the Estate Homegrown Ale.
Yeah.
Weighs in at 6.7% alcohol by volume. We're arguing about IBUs. It's somewhere in the 60 to 70 range.
Yeah, it's a hoppy beer. So
it's a pretty hoppy beer, yeah.
Definitely grab this one.
Let's get into the nose of this beer.
Yeah.
Super, pungent hop aroma.
Yeah, definitely.
Dank is a very good word for it.
Yeah.
Some of we don't know what hop strain they're using. We've kind of been researching on the internet.
Yeah.
Couldn't really find anything.
Exactly.
I get that kind of Columbus, kind of that cat piss kind of aroma, And
that's not a bad.
That's
not necessarily a bad
kind of, yeah.
You can't say cat piss is a good thing, but Europeans call it cat piss. It's referred to in more American styles as a grapefruit.
A little bit, yeah.
Kind of citrusy, grassy notes.
A grapefruit that's kind of been rubbed under your arm a little bit, like that,
Funky.
A little funk.
Yeah, right. But American West Coast, especially West Coast hopheads, love it. So don't be too offended by the term. But that's why, Europeans on a whole are not a big fan of hoppy beers like we are over here. So, yeah, they kind of look at that a little bit derogatory. So
my big thing, the first thing I thought of when I smelled this beer was it brought me back to tasting wine in wineries, and it really brought me back to a style of grape that's Viognier.
Right.
And which has this honey, peach kind of stone fruit aroma to it, mixed with this oak barrels in the tasting rooms. All of that kind of adds this very natural, very fruity, earthy nose to it.
And as you're describing
that's totally what I've got going on for me in this beer.
And I think you really hit on something there because, as I said, it might not have been the first thing that came to my mind, but I'm sitting here smelling it as you're describing that, and I can totally see what you're saying.
Right.
So I think that's a very good description. I think for both of us, as we were smelling this beer and going over it, there is another nature, an essence, an esoteric quality to this beer that transports you somewhere. It sounds cliche to be able to say to somebody that you can just smell a beer and tell whether or not it's certified organic or green or whatnot. But I honestly don't think that's as off base as it sounds, because
I
there's
think
a
you're
nature
totally
to this
right. You're totally right.
that is all natural. And that sounds really, if you don't have this beer or whatever, you haven't tried this beer, It kind of sounds like bullshit, basically. But go get this beer and try it.
Right.
And definitely leave us comments. Let us know what you think, because
this
is very unique.
Yeah, I think this beer is going to be different for a lot of people too.
I think so too.
I think this beer kind of hits on a lot of different levels, and this beer is gonna, because it's estate, because it's from that one microclimate, it's going to continue to change. Like, this is 2010, so they started this program in 2003.
2003, right?
So. Little by little, the hop flavors have been changing, and the malt characteristics, all that stuff. They're obviously roasting some of the malt. It's got some color to it.
Right. It's nice, coppery color.
Yeah, it's got a little haze, so it's
very
got some
nice
suspended yeast. But I think these things are also going to change with Sierra Nevada over the years.
Mm-hmm.
The terroir is going to change. You're
gonna have years that have
continue to carry on these own character. What if it's like a really wet,
This year's been a wet year.
Whatever. Yeah.
This year's been
Next
a wet,
year's going to be really dry. It could be something totally different.
Yeah,
or they may even start to grow different strains of hops. They may start to introduce different strains of hops. So yeah, this beer is going to evolve. This is the beginning of estate grown beers. Another thing that came to mind when I picked up this beer is long before I purchased this beer was I read an article on thefullpint.com. Great blog, by the way. Danny from Full Pint wrote a letter to Sierra Nevada saying, "Why is this beer so expensive?" Well, Sierra Nevada replied back in email and said, "The reason this beer is so expensive is because it is estate grown, which means all of our staff is the one doing it. So it's not coming from a big facility that has these huge warehouses of malt kilns and
When you're out there and you've got a corporate farming 20 square miles of malt, and you're just
and they probably had to have somebody with a combine or contract them out to come harvest the grain or whatever.
When you're doing it, I mean, it's just the same reason as you can make your own shirt, but you don't. And if you went to make
a year,
and if you went to
look
make
like
your own,
crap,
and it would cost you a lot more.
This tastes good though. It's a difference.
Yeah, and
So the deal is that the Sierra Nevada's last word was kind of like, we don't really make money off this beer. We're doing this because we feel it's important to the craft. So
definitely something I want to keep in mind. So let's taste this.
Yes. Cheers.
It's definitely a hop head beer. It's definitely a very hoppy beer. It's got some malt up front.
There is some malt hop balance. The hops do, like we've been talking, like everything that you're smelling is coming through with that front taste, and then they kind of wash out a little bit.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think my one negative quality on this beer is I think it could use a bit more body, but I think that might be because when you get a beer with this much hop aroma and this much hops, you're normally getting that in a barley wine or a double IPA or something like that.
From the aroma of this beer, you're thinking it's going to be almost like a big double IPA.
Exactly.
So you're thinking you're going to get this big.
And even the color too. The color. It's a little. It's not really pale. It's a coppery. It's a nice, deep, rich, coppery color. So I think. I mean, I've certainly had double IPAs that were paler than this, but. And so I guess I'm expecting a little bit more body out of it. But, with this whole estate thing, Sierra Nevada was very specific on controlling as many parameters as they can, and this is exactly what they wanted to put out. So, looking at it from that point of view, it is I don't know what style you would even call it. I guess this might be considered an American strong ale, which is a style that was kind of started by Stone's Arrogant Bastard. But I mean, this is 6.7, so it's up there in alcohol content. It's very hoppy.
I guess so.
It's got a kind of a red
estate,
color.
it's kind of hard to say. Like, I mean, what were they shooting for? They were shooting for making a beer that was grown, that was all produced, in house.
Yeah.
So in a sense, this is like a real American farmhouse ale.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
So,
and I don't think we've, unless you talk about like the people who used to, brew in the 1800s and 20s and 30s.
Yeah, pre-prohibition stuff. Oh, for sure.
You wouldn't find anything like. But this, obviously, that wouldn't be necessarily so hoppy, but. I mean, this is definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of the Midwest growers, Midwest brewers work with the farmers in their area and really start to narrow like exactly where they're getting their malt, their barley from, where they're getting their malt from, and really be very specific. Okay, this is our spot, and we're going to continue to kind of use this same spot.
That's kind of one of the problems I've been reading about is the fact that most of all of the ingredients used by the craft beer industry, home brewers, whatnot. I mean, you got to think about you're a farmer. Most of those ingredients are geared for the mass producers. They're geared towards Miller's, Coors, whatever. So that's the type of stuff that they do. Then there's a secondary market that they do with the craft beer and the home brewers. Right. So what we're getting really is modified or leftover versions of...
And a lot of the specialty grains that craft brewers are using, a lot of those specialty grains are imported, whether they're from Germany or Belgium
Munich
or the UK or whatever,
Vienna.
Which makes, don't get me wrong, those are making very distinctive, very wonderful beers, but they're not, they're not all sourced from one house.
Right. And so I think you're right. I think we might start.
The only other beer that I've heard of, I mean, please, if you know of any other beers that are similar to this, please comment on the video. The only other beer that I've heard of is Magnolia Brew Pub up in San Francisco. He did a beer called, I want to say it's called the Walking Man, something like that. Don't quote me on that. But he had a patron in the pub whose family had an estate in UK, and he brought over grain from the UK, and they made that beer solely out of that grain only.
Huh.
So I didn't get a chance to taste that beer. Yeah. So. Magnolia, you can send me some of that beer.
We'll try it.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Definitely.
We'll do a video for you, bro.
But so this is definitely something you want to try. To leave you with a thought on it, I think it's definitely a beer that you owe it to yourself, and as a beer geek and a beer connoisseur, I think you owe it to yourself and your continuing beer education to taste something like this, and it goes right back into the craft beer market. So I think this is a trend that we want to encourage.
This is 100% American beer.
Yeah, totally.
And we're 100% American Beer TV.
That's it.
All right.
So get out and drink some craft beer.
Yeah. Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers.